You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity loving human Zach Lyotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachlyotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. And in today's podcast, I have Karina Sha'Mah, the voice of Grandmother Speaks, is an internationally acclaimed Sage Philosopher, award-winning multimedia artist, author, carol singer, musician, and master of ascending consciousness known as Grandmother Halu Sha'Mah. Karen is a master Shambhala Byung Tao, spiritual teacher of advanced metaphysics, offering the sacred gateway of the heart masters, realizing permanent states of harmonic consciousness. Her 3 near-death experiences have shaped the loving essence of her ascended heart teachings. Live transmissions are expressed through a diverse range of ceremonial performances and sacred musical arts. Karina's abundant gifts are derived from a lifelong devotion to connect humanity with their cosmic and spiritual roots of presence through the heart of fully embodied love. Born with a profound gift to her peer into the unseen heart of creation, her radiant, sensitive, and loving awareness inspires us to awaken into the grace of presence. She calls the heart field of enlightenment. Her deep passion of ceremonial performance and sacred musical arts are derived from a yearning to connect humanity with its cosmic and spiritual roots of presence through the heart of love. Her breathtaking, multisensory, and immersive events transport guests into a realm of pure bliss. Wow, Karina, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. That was a mouthful that I said, but so activating.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. That's a mouthful for sure. I think I'm going to have to edit that down now that I'm listening to it back for sure.
It's all good. We are actually more than words could actually describe. So I get it. We feel that there's so much that we want to express, and really it's just your energy and presence that is so big and so activating and so profound. That's the word that's coming to me. It's profound. And to find words to mirror the energy that you have is pretty hard, because your energy is so amazing right now. I'm feeling it. I'm talking to you. I could feel it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you can't find the words, you don't need to. You have the presence already.
Oh my gosh, that's so, thank you so much. And return to you in the mirror of my being. Everything that you're gazing into and speaking of is a direct reflection of you. So what we say to another or think of another or feel of another, whether with good intent or ill intent or anything in between, it's really just about the expression of who we are at our core. So if you can see into that, then it's living within you already.
Amen. That's so true. That is so true. That's why, if there's a negative thought that comes to me about another, I'm like, why is that coming out of me? What am I to learn from that? Who is that? So I really go through that whole process of exactly what you said. And I think a lot of people should go through that process, because the only ill feeling that you have for another is an ill feeling that you have really for yourself. And through that energy, you can learn so much more about who you are on that deeper level. And that's why when I look at people, I see the light more than the dark, even though I see the dark that is truly the light of who they are, and get them through a journey. But it's so true that when you see someone in their divine essence of their truth, it's you seeing you in that divine essence of truth. But I really want to take us to this 3 near-death experience, because when I read that, I was like, yo, God wanted to show her something 3 times. What was going on here? Take us back there.
Yeah, the first one was when I was 8, and it was just a choice to transition and then to spend time with what I call soul family, my essence being in the direct presence of all that is. There's no name, of course. We've got 1,001 different names we could use to describe that which is indescribable. Mm-hmm. But in my 8-year-old experience of life thus far, being born with little or no veils, and having a profound and deep awareness of what life was presenting to me and how I was as a being. Mm-hmm. And that experience, I think, became really overloaded for me, especially being in just a school environment was a lot to handle in my sensitivity. And I think I was just called back or called home, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And being able to spend time there in that space gave me a deeper appreciation. And of course, I was given the choice: you can stay here in the light, or you can return and help to raise the vibration. At that point in my, cognitive awareness of the intelligence of my being, I didn't quite understand what that meant, but I knew that I had a choice. I knew that I chose to come here. And I knew that there was, a greater sphere of awareness that was going to come through me from that first experience. And so I accepted the opportunity, the invitation. So I stepped back into the body and, experiencing great raging pain, but then coming with the capacity to see rainbows around people's bodies and not knowing, and having more greater sensitivity and awareness. Prior to that, already knowing many, many things. But the time going through what we would call the tunnel of light, going into that space of the realization that to be able to, have the senses in a whole other field of consciousness, being out of a physical form and into this incredible dispersed oceanic presence, and being able to, at will, soar, fly, come into the greater sounding of the source of all that is. So it's almost impossible to imagine, but could you, when you're in a choral reverie in a choir and you just hear the songs reverberating through you, imagine that, but a 10 billion choir voice speaking and singing tone after tone after tone, what they call the celestial tones. And then Source Divine saying to me, each being carries a particular tone or note of my heart of being. And you carry this forth, and into a form you arrive. And each of you are realizing the harmony or the lack of harmony or disharmony, and then reassociating oneself back into that original tone that one carries. And when you join together, you're creating a greater harmony. So the point of this heavenly experience, if one could see, was the sound, the song, and the remembrance of the heart of all creation. It's a vibrating, humming tonality, and this billion choir voice that was speaking through me, to me, in this blazing light beyond light, this warmth beyond warmth, this love beyond love. It sounds almost like some kind of Technicolor movie thing that you would see or feel. I didn't have the normal religiosity of an experience because I grew up with a father and a mother who were very aware, spiritually diverse, and loving beings in community. And so I had an open mind and an open heart. And therefore, a lot of the normal religious coloring was not there. There was just this harmonic, expansive field that was just vibrating and moving. And so I had a lot of time because I had left my body for 8 minutes. So technically I should have had brain damage and not, being alive, or like with all that a lack of oxygen, or so-called.
Yes.
So it was a fairly long and in-depth experience. I was taken into realms of, I guess you could only describe it as schools of teaching. I don't know how else to describe it. Realms of being, awarenesses, and surrounded by my guardians, my counsels, those that supported me and said, we really need you to step back into the body if you can. We really hope that your sensitivity will be augmenting and supporting and harmonizing this great field of transition. And we really, really hope that you can bring this through for us. We'll be here and we'll do our best to move through. And they just kept on saying, offer up no resistance to that which is presented to you. Only see the gift of that which is in every heart. Listen for the tone. You will hear it. You can reflect it back through your voice. You can reflect it back through a myriad of gifts that we offer to you. So the beauty of that experience for me was the realization that I wasn't alone, because prior to that, I had experienced, extreme bullying, extreme whatever. And it was coming from a place because I was born, physically attractive. And so I had those intensity of attacks for the light and the beauty, and singled out and pointed out over and over again. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed, young, attractive girl being singled out over and over again. And so that just, it turned on me. Like anything that happens in a group mentality, when someone stands out, no matter how hard they try to hide and veil themselves, there's something that radiates through them. And so my experience up to that point was one of questioning, challenging the loneliness of being, and the wondering, is there anyone else out there like who I am?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. You brought me back. Like, you brought me back right to my childhood. I mean, I never had any near-death experience as a child, but I felt the same way. Is there anyone out there that is feeling these feelings? I feel like crying because it's so powerful. Because at the end of the day, I knew that I wasn't alone, just like you knew you weren't alone. And I remember Spirit always saying to me, go sing. And I'm just like, I can't even hold the tune. They're like, it's not you holding the tune. It's something in you that's holding that tune. And till this day, they tell me to go sing. So I'll just come around in my own house and I'll just belt out whatever I'm belting out. And it feels good. I feel like I'm connecting with someone. But as a child, I remember growing up and wondering, does anyone see this? Does anyone feel this? Growing up in my house, we came from a religious background. So I had a lot of other, I want to say, obstacles in my way because, my mom would say to me, you never wanted to go to church. We had to pull you in the church. They had to bless you. They had to, she's like, you had demons all over you. And it was like, really, did I have demons all over me? Or did I have this past life experience of not wanting to go back into the church now that I sit and think of all this? And it was difficult because I saw life differently, but I was told not to see life like that because it was wrong. And I never hid those gifts. I had my, my imaginary friend, Jessica, that was always around. And I remember my sister and brother used to laugh at me. I'm like, nope, Jessica's here. Can't you guys see Jessica? How do you guys not see Jessica? She's right in front of you. So I get that feeling of being totally alone, but not alone, wondering if other people see these things or they don't see these things, and how to rise above that. And it took a toll on me. It took a huge toll because there wasn't any support. But it's so beautiful that you had the parents that had this open-mindedness in order for you to come out with this, at 8 years old, going through that traumatic experience and recognizing that gift that you have inside of you. You had someone to explain the beauty of the gift.
I didn't exactly explain it to them. They were just sensitive enough to know that there was something unique. And I grew up with religion in my life, but it wasn't pressed upon me. My father also would take us for walks, and we would go in nature, and he would point out the beauty of nature. He was totally liberal, so everyone was invited into our home. We were like the neighborhood home. Everyone called mom and dad, and all the kids that came from rough and terrible, tumbled backgrounds would end up in our house. It was just a house of love. I'm the youngest of 8 children, and they were just filled with a kind of radiance and acceptance. But that didn't stop me from having any kind of psychological trauma of trying to adapt to having this expansive awareness and the feeling of a being, like, I love these beings. They don't feel like my mother or father. Then my brothers and sisters just like, oh, you were adopted, and they did all kind of
Yeah, I went through that same thing too. We felt sorry for you.
Yeah.
You're someone else's child.
I know. And when you get repeatedly told how ugly you are by your peers and how awful you are, and I would come back and I would talk to my sister who was closest to me, and I would say to her, am I ugly? Is there something wrong with me? Like, it's that little girl, right, that was just really struggling with humanity. And she's like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? And then when she found out what was happening, well, look out, you know, it was like everyone that was doing that to me, she just like read right in, you know, and everyone was like really quiet. And then when I went back to school after being in my state of illness for many, many weeks, they were like, oh, we thought you were dead. We were so glad you were gone. It was just, it started up again. So it was a journey and a half, because I would actually come home from school and my mom would say, oh, how was your day? I would say, wonderful, amazing. Then I would go in my room and I would pray. I would pray and bless all the people that were really struggling. And I would just have a deep compassionate awareness for where they were at. So as much as it was initiation by fire and by the depths of coming across the cruelty, for whatever reason, I just went into a space of compassion. And I would just spend time, you know, in the glorious light of who I am. It's not easy to do, like grandmother says, through me. It's simple, but it's not always easy.
That's so true.
And so I would literally float home. I wouldn't even touch the ground. And I'd look around to see if anybody would know. No one noticed. And I would like float home. And I would like, it was like I would skip, but then I would stop skipping and I would be floating home. I used to fly around my room, fly in my astral body, check out everybody, fly. Then I would go off to school in the higher realms. And then I would come back, check out what was going on with my family, and then come back into my body. And then I would, because we lived over an artesian well, so we had 2 sump pumps going. So I would always go down and talk to the waters when I was really, really, really overwhelmed. In the deep waters, like an artesian well underneath your house. Hello?
Yeah. Wow.
Pure, clear spring water. My dad had only known back then the value of the water.
Yes.
But that energy that is so important to me. So that's the first near-death experience. Then I had one when I was carrying my son. At the time, I was also physically ill, and they thought I was going to die. And so I was scheduled for an operation, and then they found out that I was pregnant. They told me it was physically impossible for me to have a child. So it was like an immaculate conception.
Yeah.
And, you know, my beloved partner is just like, they told me, you know, you need to not have the baby or you're going to die. And then they said, well, it's not going to happen. You'll die if you have this baby. And I'm like, no, I'm keeping the baby. So you guys are going to have to figure this out. So, yes. On the operating table, I died again. But this time it was to have messages about my son who was coming. And that I need to remain, and that more layers of the information about what I needed to deliver was to be there, and about my beloved and our partnership and the twin flame energy. And so more of the teachings came through. And the power of that experience again taught me about, you have the choice, you can stay here, but it was more layers of, no, I need to be there for this little being. And so it was like layer upon layer of energy that was delivered to me again. And I'm like, is there an easier way to do this now? On an operating table, to go through all these,
wow,
you know, with great gifts that come to every being in the physical form, to carry any kind of energy. You know this in yourself. Sometimes there's psychological challenges to carry that kind of wisdom and energy. And sometimes it affects the physical form. You know, and we all have this humanity that's so wondrous and so beautiful. And then we have this beautiful divine nature that's just resting in that as well. In the dilemma of the young being who, I incarnated into, and then the growth of the expansion of the consciousness combined created a friction in my being, in my body, and my soul. And so over many, many years, I've had delightful health gifts to manage, to lovingly appreciate, to honor. And so at that near-death experience, it was about bringing in new codes and awareness. And then the final one that I had was when I was 35. And that one was about, are you going to stay?
Wow. Ooh. I gotta take a breath on that one. That was deep.
Are you going to stay and complete the mission? Or are you going to stay in the light? And I decided to complete my mission. This is the last mission here. Mm-hmm. It's just to gather the beautiful teachers, leaders, masters and gather, and to be a part of that, the collective gathering, and then to bring in the legacies of all that I can support and be here for. And the awareness of how language, sound, the sacred word, everything that was to be delivered came through. And then 2 years later, I had a conscious connection with a being, and this was 2004, and it wasn't the death, it was a resurrection experience for me at the Venus transit in 2004. And that was where I finally met the guardians and the support for me. And that's when I received the messages like, you're going to have to wait to a certain age for these teachings to come through. And it's just about preparing. So all that I do, from the sacred sound to the writing, to the artistry, all of this, it comes through me, and it's guided and supported by an overseeing body, just like every being has an oversoul.
Yeah.
So for grandmother, Sha'Mah, she calls herself the goddess of the white lotus, and these are like the pure teachings, and it's an oversoul support. She calls herself the universal oversoul, and I don't make any claims. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to change anyone. Mm-hmm. I just want to sit with any being who wants to sit, to unveil and to reveal what's always there.
Yes, and what's always been there. Yeah. It just needs to be revealed, because I had this conversation just on a Facebook Live just now. It's like, you're not broken.
There's nothing to fix.
And there's nothing to fix. We just need to rebirth you to your true essence of who you are in the eyes of the divine. And sadly enough, we have to remove all those imprints that were put onto you, the wounds and all that. Listening to your story, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. Like, I'm just like, okay, yep, I got that transmission. Yep, I got that. I didn't nearly die, but I went through depression 1,000,001 times to get my messages. I got a lot of my messages through depression. And it's interesting, because I remember my last bout of depression, I said to Spirit, this is the last time I come on earth. Don't ever tell me I'm coming back to earth. I'm not doing it again. I will be of service from another realm rather from this earth realm. And it was like 2018, a few things happened in 2019. They said, you know what? You don't want to come back. You better fulfill your mission, because if this is the last one, then you need to fulfill it. And here we are doing podcasts, because this is one of the mission, is to gather all the grandmother energies and even the energies of those that are ready to awaken, so we could give the codes to them, because we hold such a powerful code. And I know that you hold this as well, because I see it in you as I see in me. These codes, once we go on to the other side, we have our mission right now is to just bring those codes onto other people so they could carry it through from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And that was it. And they said, you know, you need to fulfill this. And, you know, I was in Costa Rica not too long ago, and they said, you need to activate 10,000 people this year with these codes. And I said, well, those are some big shoes to fill, you know, 10,000 people with these codes. And so I understand what your mission is here. And I bow down to it because it's a huge mission. I don't know if you chose not to come back to this realm, but I said, this is my last go to life. And they said,
well, no, for me, I tend to come at the beginning and the end of epochs or ages when there's transition period. So I haven't been here in a long time. It's been an interesting journey since coming into this form, realizing the density of consciousness, but then seeing that, like, what was taken of the gift and how was it used, and like how can I support the upliftment and the unfoldment of this. So my service is such that, you know, I did hear about birthing the 10,000 masters onto the planet. It's interesting that we received that. And then I just realized when one being comes into their full capacity, they just become a receiver and transmitter, or what I call a universal lighthouse. And that just gets transmitted through them because, you know, omnipresence is everywhere, the love of all that it is. And so it's not that we're necessarily having to do anything. If we just completely open up our body of light, it will get transmitted naturally. What we call supernatural and miraculous is actually really natural. It's unnatural to be in a dense consciousness field. It's more natural for us to be fully alive, awakened, whatever the term you use, ascended, enlightened.
Yeah.
That's actually our natural state.
Yes.
So if we just reflect that, live that, and be that, that's the most that we could ever possibly give to any being here on this planet. It's just to be able to recognize them, to see them, to honor them for where they are, even if they're still aspiring towards that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true in so many ways. And wow, I never thought this conversation was going to get this deep, but this is beautiful. And I actually knew it was because I felt it. And I honor this conversation because the awakening process right now, what I've received is to stay in that light, be the light. And even though sometimes darkness may come over and try to take over, and I've had an experience this week with it, it's just deal with the anger aspect because that's your ego trying to shine something to teach you. And I love my ego. You know, I'm not separate from my ego. I am my ego. But I am my light as well. I am both. I am everything. I am that I am.
Yes.
And the more that we recognize that, and the more that we recognize that our light could shine, and it shines bright even in that mist of darkness because it's teaching us something, you know?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's just your local self. It's a local identity that was required, and it's beautiful. It's a part of the temple. And so it's totally welcome. Like grandmother will say, a table is set, a feast is prepared for the love of all that is and supreme intelligence. You come, you sit, and everything you've banished that you said, oh, that's no, I got to get rid of that. I got to, decord, cut this off. And she's like, no, welcome it in. Like the visitor, like Rumi says, open the door, welcome the visitors. They may come and angry, but they will leave filled. And so she says the table's set to invite in your sadness, your sorrow, your anger. These are just aspects of being that are looking. And just as we feed the body of light, we feed the physical body, we feed the body of light with omnipresence, which is indivisible. It's an immutable love. It's love in its pure form. For what I bring here and what I'm delivering here is grace. And grace is acknowledging the gift of who we truly are. It's pretty simple. Listen, I've just gone through a dark night of the soul. It started in mid-December and it just ended a few days ago. And it was a realization of my motivation for why I was doing what I was doing. And so I had a big reckoning with the local self, because listen, when you are a voice in a sea of 1,000 million voices, all, scrambling and to get attention from that place, and one is challenged by that in a social media realm, or in a realm where one is sharing or promoting, as you know. I really checked all my motivations, and I saw in that darkness was an energy of an evolved light. So when I see darkness in me, I look at it as it's aspiring and evolving.
Yes.
And it's dark light, and all it is asking is to be loved and to accept and embraced back in. So I spent a lot of time doing that for this local identity that's like going around, well, you're doing all this work, I'm carrying the baggage around for you. Who the F do you think you are anyways? Like big, high, and mighty there. And meanwhile, you're just sitting around here doing all this stupid shit and all this stuff and and all that.
Yeah.
And so it was just this total deep conversation. Are we still going? Are we having some challenges?
We're still going.
So yeah, it was checking my motivations. So my last post was a dear friend. I think I wrote on Facebook, dear friend, dear gentle heart and friend. And it was the recognition of, as a final thank you to that part of myself that was really weighed down by the burden of this mission and this gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, so I just did what I did in that month and a bit, and it completed on the big wolf moon, blood moon lunar eclipse. And it was a phenomenal experience of going right into the deepest aspects of suffering and pain. There were particles in my being. And that doesn't mean that there might not be more initiations to go through. I can't say for sure. But if I'm not willing to admit the depths of my own challenge, despair, and humanity that I'm not being honest with those that I'm here to serve.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yes, in so many ways. And it's interesting that you said you went through that dark shadow there, because I've experienced that since September. I've been in that. And since September till this wolf moon, it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. Many awakening moments, many activations, many codes coming through. But the awakened moment happened in that place of anger, when anger was shining its light to me, and I stood with anger and I said, I honor you. I'm not fighting you. I honor you, because through you, I am going to learn something greater about me. And that just happened a few days before this blood moon, full moon.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely. I'm tingling all over. Same here. And there was several triggering moments where what I call the fierce grace, or the passion of outrage at the trigger and the reaction and response energy within me. And it was like coming up. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be with this. I'm just going to sit with this. I'm not going to walk away from this. I'm not going to try and figure out what to do with this. Just listen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to this despair within me. I'm going to hear this. I'm just going to fall into it as deep as I can go. And I'm going to fall backwards right into it. It's like all I could just see is like that kind of nesty moment, where it was just like, okay, take me. Wherever you want me to go, take me. I'm not going to understand this. And I'm going to be okay in this mystery. I need to go here. And so I went. And I went just fully. And I accepted what it was. And I accepted, and I saw the beauty of it. I saw the beauty of that, and it shone a light so intimately pure, more brighter than even the brightest of all white light.
Yeah.
Was the light that came through. It was just extraordinary. And it showed me that omnipresence, the love of all that is in everything. So there is no separation. There is no separation, which means that if there is anything that is residing here, it is within that.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend time going, oh, well, that's a good thing, and that's a bad thing, and let's divide up. Well, that's safe. Angels. Oh, pretty halos. Okay. Oh, that's dark. Those devils and the laws, nasty over here. And it's like, okay, so who divided up this heavenly sphere and this evil sphere?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Nope. Ain't happening. I know I'm probably going to piss a bunch of people off, but oh well.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay, because it's meant to be felt, it's meant to be heard, it's meant to be said, and it's exactly what it is. It's okay. People often say, Zach, I try to tell people where there's light, there's dark, and people are like, well, I don't believe in bad. And I'm like, well, you need to understand there is bad, but it's still good because it shows you a sense of you. And, where there's light, there's dark, there's yin, there's yang, there's up, there's down. So
the vibration of, yeah. It's just, in my experience of being there and going through that, it's a density of consciousness that's asking for us to look into it. This is my experience, to look into it, to recognize it, to see it, to honor it, so that it may be dissolved and melted back into the source of its creation, whether it's false or and real in any moment. Reality is a question of which perception can shift and change instantaneously. My eyes are kind of closed right now because I'm feeling into that. And hearing you, who without sin cast the first stone, the idea of how could we know we can expand ourselves as much as we can. How can we know what is serving and what isn't serving? How can we really know when this mystery that is so deep in its profound nature, each being that comes into our life as a volunteer, as they call a character on the stage, is an aspect of us. And for me, in the wisdom of Sophia, one of the derivations that I carry, and grandmother, the goddess of the white lotus, is that in the center of the jewel in the white lotus, which is the pure teachings that are being delivered right now, in the center of that jewel is a pure droplet of suffering. The center of that. And it is held in that divine solution, in that jewel, for an awareness of the depths of what one must go to realize the perfection in all things. And so when I feel that, and I feel what that is, it just brings so much love into my being. And I experienced in my humanity, if we take a look at that word, human, the hu is the sound or the tone, and the man is called dust or mana. Humana was the original word, humanity. And so we see that with the tonality of the vibration and the mana or the dust, or that which is created through the physical form, we are just vibrating essence that are attempting to harmonize, to tune this instrument, to bring it into harmony or alignment with all that is, with you and your codes. You are sending forth these beautiful transmissions and signals and signal codes that are sparking, igniting, and bringing consciousness and like lifting veil upon veil. What an extraordinary gift. What an extraordinary moment for us to be here right now and to feel that. like keys into locks that unlock, rather than locks that unlock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the key, and we can say key is like a tone in the key of the exquisite nature of your being.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that you are seeing and that you are being so honest about and so willing to just, this unfuck your mind.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful affirmation.
Yeah.
It's not denying anything. It's just opening unto something that is already there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like most people are like this. They go around and they just like, and they think they're seeing the all, and they're like this, and they're just looking through this, and they got one vision, and then you take that away from them, they're like, what the heck? What's that? Where did that come from? And it's like, ooh. It's like this moment of taking those little goggles off and seeing what's already there. So, your capacity for a kind of honest love and that shining through so beautifully and so powerfully and just so willingly to demonstrating it, not just talking about it, but living it and demonstrating it. That's the key. It's that it's embodied. That's the key to it all, is that this form, it's designed in a profound way. In your physiology, the pharmacology, your DNA, all of it, it's designed, and you're accessing those codes, which is taking the 90% dormant, some call it junk, but it's dormant.
Yes.
And through your presence, it's flowing right through. And it's just like, okay, where can I go today? The vapor of my being, the breath of my soul, the words that I say, just like walking through. If you didn't say anything, you just walked right through in a space. Just being completely embracing you fully, all that you are, from the bottom of your being to the very top, from the most expanded to the most contracted. Whew, right through your breath, right vibrating through your being. That is such a gift.
You are such a gift. And seriously, I am so honored to have you on this podcast, because that submission that you just brought to us, that activation that you brought to us, is not just what you see in me, but it's exactly how we said at the beginning of the podcast. It's a reflection of you. And to those that are listening, a true activation for them, because we are speaking the same language, just in different words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it really comes down to. You may understand Karina on a different level. You may be aligned with me because I might use, a different language for you all, but recognize right now, if you guys feeling this right now, know that there was a massive activation happening for you guys right now. Know that the being of Karina, the light of Karina, the dark of Karina, everything of her essence of who she is, from every part of her, every galactic part of her, every realm of her, has totally just activated every part of you. So thank you for that, because this Unfuck Your Mind is really about bringing in the leaders, bringing in those that are ready to shine their light and to really be who they are and stand in their presence, to use their voice to change the world. And I know you're doing this because I was guided to have you on the show. I followed your work, but I didn't fully follow your work because I got off of social media because I felt unfulfilled being on social media. I felt like my soul was dying. But come 2019, it was near the end of 2018, they said, get back on social media. You need to do this, this, and this. Like, stop running away from social media. It's the new way. And I thought, do I really have to pull out a camera to take a picture at everything I do? It's not me. I don't want to take a picture. I hang out with great people, but do I have to tell the world that I hang out with great people because I'm filling up their egos, and I'm not working on the ego realm. I'm working on a spirit realm. And I had to go through a serious death process of that, because being the intergalactic elder, it was hard, and it still is hard to, be around beautiful and amazing, masculine and feminine energies, and to say, can I take a picture so we could Facebook and Instagram this? It's so not who I am. Yeah. And it takes everything inside of me to even want to say it. And 99% of the time, I don't take that picture. And I could hear spirit yelling at me, take the picture, for crying out loud. I'm like, no. So I get everything that you're saying, especially when it comes to social media or it comes to anything. I get it and I feel it. And just being in the presence, I was guided to do meditations, and I said, oh, but I want to hit the drum, and they said, you don't need to do anything. Just be. Just sit here. And the Buddha came to me, and the Buddha said to me, do you think the Buddha gets up to touch people? No, the Buddha is just here. And through the Buddha's light, the Buddha activates other people. So even as I was doing these meditations and wanting to get up to touch people, I kept on hearing, sit in the pillow right now and do not touch anybody. And so I honor you and thank you for saying this to me, because it was like, but I feel like I need to do more. And it's not that I need to do anything. I just need to be present. Yeah. You just need to be present. Like we are here today having this amazing conversation. And through that presence of our energy, light just naturally becomes activated. And it might be uncomfortable for people because the light that we carry it is potent. And I'm just going to stand true to that because it is potent light. Yes. And I have to honor that. I've had a hard time telling people who I am because I hide behind it all the time. And I have my clients that will say to me, Zach, start speaking up. Like, your prayers are next level prayers. The work that you do is next level. I've had a client say to me, I've taken a lot of spiritual classes before, but I don't know what you are doing.
That sounds very familiar.
And I know it comes, and I'm saying this because I know that whoever takes your programs and works with you has that same experience. I feel it. I feel your energy. I feel the grandmother energy. I feel the activator. I feel the ascended master. I feel all this. Mm. And I'm saying this because as you're speaking and I'm speaking, my body hairs are growing. So this is what it's all about. It's really about bringing people together so that you can untangle the old self and really rebirth the true self. And it's not like new year, new you. There is no old you. It's just a rebirthing of you. Mm. So I thank you for being on this podcast today. I thank you for sharing your stories. I thank you for activating the listeners, because this really podcast is not my podcast. This is the universe's podcast. And I love when people say, your listeners. I'm like, no, honey, it's our listeners. These are our people. There's no separation here. There's no division here. This is about unity. This is about oneness. I don't care whoever you identify yourself by. We are spirit. We are stars. We are cosmic dust. We are just in this body for this period that we chose to come into this world. So thank you for being of service, and thank you for literally bringing so much light to this podcast. And I can't wait to meet you in person. I know you're in Toronto, and I'm gonna hunt you down, lady. That's it. I'm hunting you down.
Okay, we won't hunt each other down. How about we get together and just do a beautiful activation circle and just sit in each other's presence?
That sounds like a great plan. I'm going to take you up on that offer, because I love to dive into your energy, and I want you to dive into my energy, and let's just activate within each other. Yes.
Can I do something for you? Just quickly. I know you got to close it off, but grandmother wants to sing for you. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd love to do that for you right now, because the sound that needs to come through, and I know you're like reflecting back and forth, but just to honor you reaching out to us for the beauty of this moment, for all that we are and all that we don't know what we are, and all the unseen in all the dimensions in all ways. Blessed be you, wondrous being. Speaking this amrit of this nectar that flows through the pranic field, flows up the pranic tube and down the pranic tube. Beautiful golden white mixed with the high ascended crystals, light of all that being, the earth star and the soul star, merging in the heart star. Sha'Mah, 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 Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Very much received. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. I have no more words right now. I just want to take this all in. So thank you for the blessing. Thank you for the song. Thank you, grandmother. Thank you to all the light beings that stepped forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Karina. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything, everyone that you are. Not everything, but everyone that you are, because you're more than one. So thank you for that as well. To our listeners, I know you felt some serious love in this transmission, this activation that we've been given right now. Thank you for listening. To reach out to Karina and work with her, all her social handles are in the show notes below. If you feel called to work with Karina, there's amazing activations that she has presently given us, and there's a lot more inside of her that she is ready to give to you. So reach out if you feel aligned. Thank you for listening to Wise Woman Wednesdays. We'll catch you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get Uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.